Okay, on this bezel, okay, this is the end piece, right? You see how it's kinked at the end? Well, bezels need to be perfectly straight. See, it's real nice and straight. That's where the seam is at. Right there. You want to try to get those as straight as possible. And so this one is kinked here. So I get my tool. Smash it straight. Now it's nice and straight. Now it's workable. Then I get my your stone. What I do is I'll put it here, place it wherever you want your seam. So I'll do it here. I usually look for the flattest section. You don't want to do it from the top, or you don't want to do it from the bottom. You want to do it from the side. So either side, get your bezel. I'm actually holding the stone with the bezel there. You see that? And I place my finger down. And I kind of like wrap it around with just that finger. And when I get about right here, you're going to need to hold the stone and hold the bezel in at the same time, because you don't want it moving around. You want it nice and tight up against the stone as possible, while it has to be straight. I hold it there. And I hold it here. And wrap it around with this finger. Try to get this bezel as tight because you want it to be accurate. So this whole time it's tight around there. I make sure there's no gaps in between the bezel and the stone. So I get it there. Hold it there. Now you want to grab it and make sure it's just right. And I'm holding it because it could slip that way when it starts going that way or that way. You gotta make sure it's almost dead perfect. And I'm holding that sucker there. I'm gonna grab my scissors. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this piece on the bottom here. I'm gonna use this as the guide and using my scissors to actually place up against here. Placing my scissors there. That's how you know where to cut. You got a nice cut. Once you get that, put it back on your stone. You're holding it almost in the same place as you did when you cut it. Make sure everything is nice and tight. It's up against everything. And I'm looking at it, and it's overlapping by just a millimeter or so. So, take that off. I'm gonna look at it. And if you look at it, you see why? Because it's not cut straight. You could never cut it straight. And so you just do it as accurate as you can, then you come back later and you actually cut it to make it straight. And then when you use the scissors, of course, it's going to kink it again. You can only make that straight. Now you got a cut, or you got a bezel. Now you're going to want to seam it together. So if you do this, if you grab it from here, it's just going to spring back every time. So what you have to do is look at it, make sure it's nice and close, and you're going to manipulate it from the bottom. So you're actually moving it there, getting it straight from up here. You're just manipulating it so that way it touches. And you don't want it to be like this. You see how it's kind of spring over? And once you do that, it's still sprung under. You don't want it to grab like that, because once you heat it up, it's going to do this. So you want it to be just barely touching. Even if you can have it just a little open, that much open, that's where you should be. But I like to make them touch perfectly. Now this is your flux. I recommend Ultra Flux. It's kind of white and goopy. And so you look at this stuff and it has a layer of water on top. Yeah. Well, that's just to keep it moist. But you need the stuff that's in here. You need this. So what I do is I get a spoonful. Just in there. Now you can add a little water to it, but I like to keep all the water in there as much as I could. So then you just add your own water. And I'm adding just enough water to kind of. You want a watery mixture, but there's times that call for a thicker mixture. It depends on what you're doing. Now, we're going to be soldering a bezel, so I prefer a thicker mix, because when you have a thicker mix, you have a less tendency to burn anything up, because all the heat is going to the thick flux. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if it's real thin, then it's gonna be easier for it to burn up. So now we gotta, I use a high temp. This is high temp 75% solder. I use 75% for all bezels. And the reason behind that is because later on, you don't want your bezels to open.
Oh, okay, I see.
You know, and if you're soldering something else, so like your bezels stay at 75%, but you're using 65% for everything. So of course 65% burns at a lower temperature. So this won't be affected because this burns at a higher temperature. So it won't spring out, because what happens is this will spring out once you're putting all your stuff together. And that's something you don't want. You don't want to have to touch your bezels once they're done whatsoever. If you can stay away from it at all costs. Yeah, just a little bit. And basically, I just put it on the place where I'm going to be soldering. Just that spot right there. It's over here. Okay. So what I'm doing here, it's gonna evenly heat up the whole thing, and you don't need much heat for this. Although I usually work about right here. But for this, I'm just going to go real slow. So I'm going to focus my heat on this piece here. And once it gets to a certain color, you can notice with the naked eye, you can see the color of the stuff starting to change, because it's going to start melting. So if you notice it, it starts to change a little red. It starts to get a little shiny. That's how you know when you're ready to start soldering. But if you go too much, you'll burn it. And so that's why I'm moving my flame like this, because I'm trying to control temperature. I want it at that certain temp without it actually burning it. And then that's it.
Wow.
It is harder than it looks, but once you get it, you'll never forget. So once you're done with this, I cool it off because I don't want it to flake off. I'm trying to keep this pad good as long as I could, and I don't want it flaking off into my silver, because it will. I'm gonna dry it off. Place it around on your stone. So we got a bezel for it. Now, once you place it on there, it's not perfect. So what I do is up against something, I'll go ahead and give it some pressure all the way around to kind of get the shape. This is what I call shaping. So I'll shape it all the way around, make sure it's nice and even. Sure it doesn't come off the stone while you're doing it, because then you will have problems. So what you want is something to just free flow out of there, just like that. It's just going in and out, it's no problem. Because if this is too big, if the bezel came out too big, well then you're gonna have to recut it and take off the excess and then resolder it. If the bezel is too small and it don't want to go on the stone because you cut it too small, well then you can always grind, or say all you gotta do is grind around it a little bit, with the machine, and then it should just fit right in there. So this is the bezel.